Hello and welcome back to Tenno-Forged, a series of builds focused on creating entertaining gameplay without sacrificing too much effectiveness. Today in the Forge, the Elementalist Mag build. The build itself is a good mix of duration, range and efficiency, while disregarding power strength for the most part. We do however need to have power drift. If we unequip this mod, our damage multiplier from magnetized bubbles goes below 1, meaning we actually deal less damage to magnetized enemies. I use growing power to increase my power strength whenever a status procs. Counterpulse to disable enemy weapons and robotics for 4 seconds. Do note that this scales with ability duration. Natural talent is a personal preference, feel free to replace it. Lastly we have Arcane Fury and Strike to beef up our melee. The Archiplasma is my primary of choice. I run a gas damage build to deal with high level armored enemies. Shotgun Spaz for fire rate and shooting reload to increase cold damage and reload speed. Since Mag is a heavy caster frame, I use Nano Applicator to reach 100% status chance. The melee I use is a Condition Overload Lesion. We build the Lesion for blast damage and add shock damage, which will use the passive to become corrosive damage. Keep in mind that where you place your mods determines what combinations you get. If you have it, I'd recommend using a Plague Storm melee. This is because the Plague creep path has innate viral damage. In most content, which of the two you choose doesn't matter too much, but against very high level enemies the extra range and viral procs become much more valuable. Let's get into some tech demonstration. Here's me showing that all 4 of Mag's abilities can trigger our arcanes. That's the reason I chose crit based arcanes even though both melees have a low base crit chance. The Archiplasma will always deal an impact proc to enemies shot from 50 meters range or closer. This knockback duration can actually be increased by a cold damage proc. Every time I use an ability, Nano Applicator will give my Archiplasma 100% status chance when scoped in. Together with the impact proc and its innate 2 meter enemy punch through, I will always proc at least 2 different types of status to enemies within the bubble. During the jam animation, blast procs will deal damage normally but can't knock down. This can be both beneficial and harmful to you. And lastly, here's a showcase of the damage this build can do against a mix of level 120 enemies from all factions. In the first guide I said that I would always include a challenge run of at least an hour solo mod survival. During the testing for this build I really struggled to enjoy the challenge run. Part of this was because the Mag build still needed refining and went through several iterations, and I also really sucked at Mag, but I was just not having fun because I had to play so incredibly passive and safe. I have done a lot of endless runs and I generally enjoy that type of gameplay, but when comparing it to the idea behind Tenno-Forged, I realized the sort of gameplay required to survive for hours on end goes against the idea of Tenno-Forged builds. Therefore I have decided to remove this challenge run from the requirements list and instead replace it with an exterminate run where I show off how I play with the build and also talk about some strengths and weaknesses for each build. I have however not thrown endless runs entirely out the window. I'm willing to make a new series specifically for endless runs if people want to see it. That's it for the quick PSA. I hope you enjoy this new segment. Now I have never really played this Warframe a lot. While looking around for a general idea on how to build this frame, I noticed a lot of people build her for long range damage nukes using her magnetized. While there's nothing wrong with that, to fit in with the Tenno-Forged builds, I wanted to create a close range brawler so that we can use all of our weapons, even our melee weapons, consistently. While this gave me a very action packed and fast paced build, it does however have its downsides. Which brings me to the strengths and weaknesses of this build. The biggest strength is its versatility. You can equip a lot of different weapons and get the same or even better results. However, while your weapons and abilities can easily kill very high level enemies, Mag herself can struggle to hold up at times. If you are not careful you will instantly die. This also means that if you pick up this build, prepare to die a couple of times when fighting high level enemies. So even if you unleash elemental carnage on your enemies, you are still just a Mag, so keep that in mind. That's about it for the build. If the video sucked, you know what to do. If you enjoyed it, consider liking it to help my videos get noticed in the algorithm. Make sure to check the comments because any additional information that comes to my mind will be pinned there. Until next time.
broken their ranks and they are on the run. Another successful mission. Find extraction.